Rich man left by his parents in orphanage 57 years ago finds them in nursing home. After being abandoned by his parents as a youngster at an orphanage, a man discovers them in a retirement home 57 years later and must make a life-altering decision. Brendan Wallace's earliest memories were of hunger and terror, as well as angry voices shouting about him. The hands that should have been soft and caring for him were rough instead. Brendan recalled crawling out of his crib and toddling towards the sound of music and laughter, his diaper soaked and heavy. Then the laughter came to a halt. "For God's sake, we have to get rid of that child," shouted a woman. It was his mother who spoke to him. When Brandon's mother was drowsy and satisfied, she'd let him cuddle up to her warmth and he'd feel safe and secure. Brandon's parents, on the other hand, were irritated by his presence. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to be inspired by these real-life stories on a daily basis. Now, let's return to the story. Brandon, as an adult, would take many years to understand why little Brandon was so sad and undesired. His parents were both affluent and relied on trust monies to support them. They were living in a commune when Brandon was born. Brandon's parents didn't love children because it was the 1960s, the period of peace and love, and flower power was in full swing. Margaret Wallace was shocked and upset when she found out she was pregnant. She was terrified because she had no intention of ever being a mother, and angry because it was far too late to stop Brandon from being born. Margaret and Brandon's father, Rafe, were fortunate in that the commune was full of nurturing women who adored babies and looked after Brandon. Brandon wasn't supposed to be Brandon. They wanted something more romantic, like Moonchild. But the man at the register noticed Margaret's bare feet and love beads and inquired about her father. She replied, Brandon. Brandon was registered as Brandon, which is a respectable and serviceable name. Margaret and Raffi stayed in the community until Brandon was about 3 years old, at which point they chose to leave. They were debating whether or not to follow a new guru who was all the rage. The man, an Indian ascete, had delivered a talk in San Francisco, and the couple was blown away by his notion of living a meaningful life. Margaret and Raffi instantly determined that the guru's ashram in India was where they should be. But what were they going to do about Brandon? They wouldn't be able to abduct him. Margaret said, "We'll put him in an orphanage. Isn't that where the kids are taken care of?" Raffi, on the other hand, was less convinced. "What about the story of Oliver Twist? That's something I wouldn't want to happen to this child." Margaret exclaimed, "Nonsense. It'll be okay, I'm sure. And he's not going to be impoverished, is he? He'll be born with his own trust money, and he'll be okay as soon as he grows up. He'll be able to get all he requires." Margaret and Raffi dumped 3-year-old Brandon in the foyer of a convent-run orphanage on the outskirts of San Francisco 3 days later. His birth certificate and documentation connected to his trust money were the only things they left with him. The nuns with their white headdresses that looked like wings were like angels to Brandon. They took him, washed him, and fed him, while also caring for the agonizing continuous rash that had tormented him since birth. Brandon was surrounded for the first time by people who were kind, caring, and compassionate. He grew up to be an energetic, happy little child in the orphanage, although he would occasionally slip into deep silences. He began to understand more and more of his hazy memories as he grew older. He found out about his trust fund and the wealth he'd inherit when he grew up. He knew his parents didn't abandon him because they were poor and desperate. The majority of the children in the orphanage were orphans, but a handful had been abandoned because their parents could no longer feed them. Brendan's parents, on the other hand, were well off. Brandon left the orphanage and the caring nuns when he reached 18 and went to college. The trust fund had grown to the point that there was enough money for Brandon to go to college or possibly live on for the rest of his life without working. Brandon, on the other hand, desired to construct bridges similar to the San Francisco Bridge. He aspired to construct bridges that soared and appeared to reach the skies. He met Susan, a charming artist at college, and the two fell in love. After graduation, they married and had 2 children. Brandon felt such a flood of affection when he first cradled his children in his arms that he couldn't comprehend how his own parents could have abandoned him. His resentment and rage for them developed in lockstep with his love for his own children. He informed Susan, "They never loved me the way I love Meg and Brian. They were never fond of me." Brandon had become a grandpa when he received words of his parents. The law company that was in charge of his trust funds contacted him and informed him that his parents' trust monies had finally run out. "Mr. Wallace, they're impoverished," the lawyer explained. "We've paid the rest of the trust fund to the nursing home where they're residing, but they'll be homeless in 6 months." Brandon asked coldly, "Why are you phoning me?" The man paused for a moment. He explained, "Well, they're your parents. We felt it was important for you to be informed, and possibly a normal sensation." Brendan responded, "They weren't natural parents. Unless it's a healthy scorn, I have no sympathy for them." Brandon's conscience was tugged by the lawyer's call, which kept gnawing at him. He informed Susan, "I'm 60 years old and I owe them nothing, so why am I feeling this way?" Susan softly told him, "Because you're a decent man, and good folks do what's right." Brandon and Susan drove down to the old age home where Margaret and Raffi now resided 2 weeks later. They were no longer the long-haired, lithe, and attractive flower children they'd previously been. They were in their 80s and didn't age gracefully. The two were taken aback when a caregiver informed them that their son would be paying them a visit. Margaret then rose to her feet and came towards Brandon, arms outstretched. "My baby, Brandon!" she cried, yet her small, brilliant eyes were devoid of tears. Brandon easily eluded her hug. He said, "Hello, Mama. I'm astonished you recognize me. I wouldn't have known who you are." Raffi smiled, revealing that he had lost most of his teeth. He added, "Now, my boy, let's not linger on the past. We're thrilled to see you. It hasn't always been easy. We aren't the same people we used to be." Margaret said softly, "Please, my boy, don't leave us." Brendan inquired, "Abandon you? Are you saying that I would treat you the same way that you treated me?" Raffi claimed, "We left you the money. You weren't impoverished like we are now." Brandon remarked quietly, "You didn't leave me the money. When I was born, my grandfather's estate automatically put up a trust fund for me. You were completely uninvolved. But guess what? I'm not going to abandon you because you deserve it, but because I'm a better person than both of you. I understand what love and compassion are. I forgive you, even though you don't deserve it, and I promise to assist you. You're welcome to the money." With tears in his eyes, Raffi gazed at Brandon. "We're so isolated, my son. We're so isolated. What can money buy us right now? More days of solitude? Please." Brandon smiled and nodded. "Now you know how I felt," he explained. "All I wanted as a child was to be loved and treasured. Do you think the money helped in any way? Now, when you're older, you too want to be loved and spend your time with family." "It's fine, Father and Mother. I'll take you home with me. You will not perish alone." Brandon brought Margaret and Raffi home and hired a caretaker for them. Margaret enjoyed recounting stories to their grandkids and great-grandchildren about their chaotic days in the 1960s, including playing guitar with Bob Dylan around a campfire. Raffi sat close to Brandon as often as he could, his hands in a feeble claw. Brandon gave the vast sum of the money that had accrued in his trust fund to the orphanage that had reared him and shown him the meaning of love and care. What we can take away from the story is that money isn't a replacement for love. Brandon's parents abandoned him, leaving him a large sum of money but no love or sympathy. Bitterness is a poison, and the only remedy is forgiveness. Brandon harbored hatred towards his parents until he was ultimately able to forgive them. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone else who might enjoy it as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.